We thought it was a blackout. Then the stars disappeared. Then the knocking started. It started with the power going out. No storm, no warning. Just the lights in our small Oregon town flickering once, like they had hiccuped, then vanishing all at once. Streetlights, TVs, phones, everything. Even the air felt different. Heavier. Too still. Like something was pressing against the inside of my ears. Willow and I were sitting on the couch, trying not to talk about what happened in the woods 2 months ago. We had made a silent agreement not to say the name Carter, not to ask about the black envelopes, not to wonder what the hell that thing really was. But sometimes, late at night, we'd sit in the dark and pretend the silence between us was normal, safe. This wasn't that. Willow stood up, phone in hand. Batteries at 19%, no signal. I looked out the window. Nothing. No porch lights, no motion sensors, no headlights crawling down the roads. The whole town was just gone. Not physically, just absent, like someone had smothered it in velvet and taken a step back to watch. "I'll check the fuse box," she muttered, already heading down toward the back door. I stayed behind. The living room felt too big all of a sudden. The fire in the hearth had burned low. Shadows pulled in the corners like something was leaking into the walls. I couldn't stop staring at the window. There was nothing out there, but it didn't feel empty. It felt waiting. Willow came back 10 minutes later. She didn't say anything at first, just stood in the doorway, wet from the cold air, jaw clenched. "Natalie?" she said finally. "The whole street's blacked out, not just us. And there are no stars." That stopped me. I stepped past her, out onto the porch. She was right. No moon, no clouds, no stars. Just an ocean of black. So thick it felt like the air had weight. I could barely make out the shape of the houses across the street. No light from windows, no flicker of candles. But I could hear something. Down the street. A wet, dragging noise, like someone pulling a trash bag over concrete. I leaned forward, squinting into the dark, and I saw her. Our neighbor, Mrs. Kessler. Only, not her. Not really. She stood in the middle of the road in her nightgown, pale, too pale, her head tilted at a painful angle. Her arms dangled slack at her sides like she'd forgotten what they were for, and her mouth was open, hanging slack-jawed. I called out, "Mrs. Kessler?" No answer. She twitched, then took a step forward. Another figure emerged behind her. Then another. Then 5 more, all moving the same way, like puppets dragged by invisible strings. "What the hell is happening?" Willow whispered. I didn't have an answer, but I knew that smell. Static, metal, ozone, the same scent that had leaked through the woods that night. The same presence that had fogged the cabin window from the outside. "Get inside," I said. "Why?" "Because this isn't a blackout." We backed into the house and closed the door quietly. Not a slam, not a click, just slow pressure against the wood until it settled into place with a whisper. Willow slit the deadbolt. I pulled the curtain tight. The only light in the room came from her phone, just the faint glow of her lock screen casting shadows across her face. She looked pale, sickly. The air inside felt thinner now, like every breath pulled from a shallow well. We crouched below the window, side by side, and peeked through the edge of the curtain. The street was filling with them, figures all shambling the same way, head low, arms limp, like their joints had become unstrung. No coordination, no sound except that slick dragging of bare feet and broken limbs across asphalt. One man, someone I think worked at the hardware store, had his right leg twisted completely backward. He still walked on it, limped forward like nothing was wrong, his foot bending with a sick crack every time it hit the pavement. Another woman's jaw was missing, just gone. Her mouth opened into a hollow cavity of black and exposed tendon, tongue slack and pulsing like it didn't know what to do without lips. Something moved inside, twitching, like a second tongue or a hand. Willow squeezed my wrist, She didn't say anything. She didn't have to, because we could see more of them now, coming from every direction. Silhouettes lining the edges of porches, staring into dark windows, pausing just long enough to listen, but not with their ears, with something else, some kind of sense we couldn't understand. "They're not looking," Willow whispered. "They're scanning." She was right. They didn't move like predators. They moved like instruments, searching, mapping. One of them stood in front of our neighbor's house and lifted its head. Its face was slack, jaw unhinged, but its eyes, what was left of them, were twitching, fast, like insects on the wet paper, a pulsing vibration behind ruined sockets. Then it snapped its head toward the window. Not our window, but a window. It had sensed something. Then the screaming started. Not from it, from inside that house. A woman's voice, hoarse, high, wet with terror. Then thuds, fast, frantic, like she was trying to get out through the back. The thing screamed, if you could call it that. It opened its mouth and something poured out. Not a sound. A static, a low-frequency distortion that made the window glass around it tremble. And then the front door of that house just collapsed inward. They poured in, and then it went quiet. Too quiet. Willow covered her mouth. I felt something cold in my chest. Not fear, not yet. Recognition. This wasn't random. This was deliberate. "Basement," I whispered. "Now." We moved low, hands brushing the floor, stepping over every creaking board we'd memorized from years of living here. My phone's flashlight flicked on for just a second, enough to guide us to the basement door. It was darker down there, and colder, like something hadn't thawed since the last time the house was empty. Willow shut the door behind us and slid the deadbolt. We sat on the concrete floor, back against the wall, our breath fogging in the dim light of her screen. "What the hell is happening?" she whispered. I didn't answer right away. Then, "I think it's happening again." She didn't ask what I meant, because she knew. Because some part of us, both of us, knew this was tied to the division. To Carter. To the thing in the woods they promised us was contained. And now it was loose again. Or something worse had followed. The wind-up flashlight we found barely worked. It took 2 full minutes of cranking before we got a sputtering beam of yellow light to flicker across the cement walls. The bulb buzzed faintly, and the beam trembled. But it was something. And right now, something was the difference between safe and screaming in the dark. Willow aimed it toward the far corner of the basement, where her dad used to store old hiking gear. There were plastic bins stacked on top of each other, most of them warped from years of moisture. She pried one open with her fingernails. Inside, sealed in an old garage bag, are old camping packs, the same ones we brought to the cabin, the same ones we hadn't touched since the woods. I didn't remember packing them away. I didn't remember carrying them out of the motel. But they were here, like someone wanted them to be, like someone returned them. Willow crouched beside me, hands shaking as she pulled the zipper open. Inside was a small propane burner, a dented thermos, our fire starters, gauze wraps, iodine, a knife, 2 protein bars, and crowbar, she said, holding it up. Heavy, rusted near the base, but solid. It wasn't a gun, but it was enough to make me feel like we weren't helpless. She handed it to me. "You're better at swinging," she said quietly. I didn't argue. We dug deeper, found a half-crushed box of waterproof matches, an old poncho, water purification taps, the essentials. No batteries, no radios, no signal. I turned the flashlight toward the basement windows, those small rectangular ones tucked just above ground level. The glass was fogged with condensation from inside, but also smeared from the outside. Long wet streaks, as if someone had run their fingers down the pane again and again and again. My stomach turned. "They were here," I said. Willow didn't ask who. She just pulled the curtain shut. We checked the bulkhead doors next. Still locked. Still sealed. But the hinges creaked when we tested them. "Could be a way out," I said. "Or in," Willow replied. She wasn't wrong. We sat on the concrete, back against the cold wall, passing the flashlight between us like it was a candle in a church full of ghosts. "We need a plan," she said. "I know. We can't stay here forever." "I know." Outside, the town was silent again, but I knew it wouldn't stay that way, not when we were two of the last people left. We waited another hour. No more dragging footsteps, no more static howls in the dark. The neighborhood had gone silent again, like whatever had pulled the power had called the horde to some deeper place, farther from here. A hunting perimeter maybe, or a ritual we couldn't begin to understand. But the silence didn't feel safe. It felt hollow, like a mouth waiting to close. "We need to check the house," Willow said. I nodded, crowbar in hand. We crept up the basement stairs, flashlight clenched between her teeth. Every step creaked in slow protest. The main floor was pitch black, cold. We kept low, moving room to room, checking the closets, the cabinets, the crawl space beneath the stairs. First aid kit, half full, duct tape, a box cutter, an unopened can of peaches, no batteries. I pocketed the peaches. It wasn't much, but it felt like a win. We moved into the kitchen. The windows were fogged, but intact. The backyard looked empty. Even the tree line beyond the fence was still, like the forest itself had gone to sleep. "I think they're gone," Willow whispered. I wanted to believe that. I really did. Then came the sound. Not footsteps. Glass, a sharp crack from the living room. Then a low-wet gurgle, almost a moan. Willow spun, raising the flashlight. The beam stuttered across the far wall. And there she was, Mrs. Patel. She had been our next-door neighbor since we were kids. She used to leave lemon bread on our porch. She used to hum old Indian lullabies while tending her garden. Now she stood inside our house. She had crawled in through the broken window, dragging herself over the sill. Her hands were bloodied, not from a wound, from the glass. She hadn't tried to avoid it. Her knees bent wrong. Her face was slack. One eye twitched uncontrollably, as if something behind it was trying to blink for her. Willow backed into the counter. "Mrs. Patel?" The thing tilted its head. Then it opened its mouth. It didn't speak. It gurgled, a low metallic rattle like a broken radio trying to pick up a voice. Then it charged. Willow screamed and fell back, the flashlight skidding across the tile. I didn't think. I just moved. The crowbar came down with a sickening crunch. Once, twice. Blood sprayed the walls. Her arms flailed, useless. The mouth stayed open the whole time, still gurgling. The third strike silenced it. The body crumpled. But I didn't move. I just stood there shaking, staring at what was left of her. Willow crawled to my side. Her hands were on my shoulders. She was saying something, but I couldn't hear her. I had just killed someone I knew. Not someone, what was left of someone. But the worst part wasn't the killing. It was the relief I felt after, like a weight had lifted, like my body had already adjusted to this new rule. Survive no matter what. I wiped the crowbar clean on her nightgown. Willow didn't stop me. Neither of us cried. There wasn't time for that anymore. We didn't speak for a while. The flashlight buzzed faintly on the floor, the beam cutting across the kitchen like a scalpel. Mrs. Patel's body lay motionless in the center of the room. Blood had pooled beneath her, soaking into the grout beneath the tiles. I crouched beside her and pulled the old tablecloth off the dining table. It was faded, blue and white floral print. One corner burned from a candle we knocked over during a New Year's party 5 years ago. I spread it gently over her body, not because I thought she was still her, but because it felt wrong to leave her exposed like that. Willow stood at the counter, arm crossed over her chest. She hadn't looked away once. I think she needed to see it, to witness it, to make sure the thing wasn't going to move again. She was so kind, I said quietly. Willow nodded, but her face stayed blank, guarded. Yeah, she brought us soup when I had bronchitis last winter. I remember. The flashlight flickered again. She bent down and gave it another wind. "We can't stay here," she said, her voice like gravel. I knew what she meant, not just because of the broken window, because of everything. The house was too small, too fragile. One cracked pane and something got in. There was no second floor, no real vantage point, just 4 thin walls and memories bleeding into the carpet. We could go to the high school, I said. It's got storm shelters, thick doors, maybe food in the cafeteria storage. Willow nodded slowly. And a nurse's office, maybe radios. And it's on a hill, I added. Harder for them to get in without us seeing. She finally looked at me. Not just glanced. Looked. I don't know if we'll make it, she said. We probably won't, but we won't make it here either. I reached down and picked up the crowbar. She gathered the gear into our old camping packs. Water taps, duct tape, gauze, the peaches, the wind-up light. I took one last glance at the lump beneath the tablecloth. She didn't scream, I said. Willow paused. She couldn't. That stuck with me. We slid the window shut as best we could, wedging a chair under it even though the frame was already splintered. It wouldn't hold if they came again, but it bought us minutes, maybe seconds. We moved back toward the front door. Every creak beneath our boots felt sharper now. The air was colder, like the night outside had finally noticed we were still alive, and it was coming back for us. We didn't take the streets. That would have been right. Instead, we moved through backyards, slipping through gaps in fences, ducking under overgrown hedges and laundry lines that swayed like ghosts in the dark. The wind-up flashlight stayed off. Too risky. Our eyes adjusted just enough to make out shapes. The silhouettes of houses, the glint of broken glass, the unnatural stillness that made every shadow feel like it was holding its breath. The cold cut through my jacket. Willow kept one hand tied around the strap of her bag, the other clenched around her knife. We didn't talk, not because we were afraid of being heard, because we didn't trust our voices to not break. Halfway down Cherry Street, we crouched behind a rusted grill in a stranger's yard. From here, we had a view of the intersection ahead. 5-way stop, a little roundabout with a collapsed mailbox and a tricycle frozen mid-tumble. We heard the screaming first. Not far. A woman. Sharp. Real. Not like the distorted, gurgling things we'd heard before. She was alive. We pressed ourselves against the wooden fence, peeking through a slat just wide enough to see the street beyond. She was running barefoot down the center of the road, carrying a toddler in her arms, maybe 2 years old. Blonde curls, blood smeared across his face. Not his own. Her robe flapped behind her, streaked with dirt and torn down one side. She kept looking over her shoulder, eyes wild. "Please," she sobbed, staggering. "Please." And then the toddler twitched. His little hands jerked upward, too fast, too sharp. One gripped her lower jaw, the other latched behind her ear. The woman froze mid-step, confused. Then he ripped. Her scream didn't finish. Her head twisted sideways with a wet, cracking snap, and came free with a sound I'll never forget. The toddler's tiny face didn't change. Not angry, not gleeful, just blank. He dropped her body, then sat down beside it. He began pulling at her scalp like it was something to peel. Willow slapped a hand over her mouth, eyes wide and wet. I turned away and pressed my forehead against the fence, trying not to make a sound, trying not to imagine what happens to a world where even the children aren't spared. Or worse, are used. We waited, until the thing that had once been a toddler crawled toward a storm drain and vanished inside. Only then did we move. We cut across 3 more yards in silence. Every swing of the crowbar felt heavier. My thoughts didn't feel like my own anymore, more like static trying to rewrite itself into something useful. We passed the house where someone had scrawled, "Don't trust the voice," in red spray paint across the garage. The door beneath it was ajar. Something wet was dripping out. We didn't check inside. We didn't need to. By the time we reached the edge of the hill behind the high school, the town felt like a memory already, rotting from the inside, limb by limb. And I knew, deep down, this was never just a blackout. The hill behind the school was steeper than I remembered, but then again everything tonight felt off, distorted by adrenaline, by trauma, like someone had pulled our town up by the roots and stitched it together slightly wrong. Willow and I crouched behind the crumbling retaining wall that bordered the staff parking lot. The gym loomed in front of us, 2 rust-streaked emergency exit doors with push bars. Locked, of course, but the glass in one had already been cracked. She nodded towards it. I took the crowbar and shoved the edge into the fracture, pressing gently until it spiderwebbed outward with a sharp pop. Another push, and the panel gave way. We stepped into blackness. The school had never felt so dead. No hum of vending machines, no flicker of safety lights, just walls sweating mildew and faint echoes that weren't ours. Willow's breath fogged in the beam of the flashlights as we moved past the gym bleachers. Everything smelled like old sweat and wet rubber. "We need to get below ground," she whispered. "Shelters somewhere near the locker rooms." "Do you even remember where that is?" She didn't answer. Neither did I. We'd graduated 3 years ago, but back then we weren't exactly paying attention to evacuation signs, just how to sneak out without getting caught. We turned down the hall behind the gym and followed the faded "Maintenance Access Only" sign. The door at the end was half open. A steel stairwell descended into the dark. Willow wound the flashlight again, and we started down. The air changed by the 3rd step. Thicker, warmer, like walking into someone else's breath. The boiler room was bigger than I remembered. Concrete floor, exposed pipes bleeding rust, water pulled beneath ancient tanks that hissed quietly even without power. But that wasn't what stopped us. It was the voices. Whispers, too low to understand. I raised the crowbar. Willow raised her knife. We stepped around the corner and froze. 2 people sat in the corner beside the old fuse panel, flashlight taped to a mop handle. One held a hammer, the other a chef's knife. Both turned at the sound of our footsteps. "Jesus Christ," the guy muttered, lowering his weapon. He was our age, maybe a little younger, blonde, wearing a shredded hoodie. His hands were shaking. The girl beside him was barefoot, her knees pulled to her chest, eyes wide, but not crazed, not infected. She had a spiral notebook pressed to her stomach like a shield. "I know you," she said to Willow. "You did theater." Willow blinked. "Jana?" She nodded. "We thought we were the only ones left." The guy stood. "Name's Kyle. We've been holed up here since this started. Something's wrong out there." "No kidding," I muttered, lowering the crowbar. "We tried to shelter," Jana said, "but the stairwell collapsed years ago. Mold took out the bottom level. We're trapped on this floor." "How many were with you?" I asked. She paused. 7. My chest tightened. Kyle shook his head. "Only us now." I didn't ask how the others died. Some truths were too big for the dark. Willow looked at me, then back at them. "We can't stay here long. It's quiet now, but it won't stay that way." Kyle moved to the steel maintenance door and rested his hand against it. "They come in waves, like they're searching in grids." "And when they find someone?" I asked. He didn't answer, but the way his fingers twitched said enough. We sat together in the dark, backs to the old boiler, all of us clutching something with weight. Crowbar, hammer, knife, memory. Somewhere above us, something dragged across the gym floor. Slow, heavy, not hurrying, just hunting. Jana whispered, "They know we're here." I didn't respond, because I felt it too. The boiler room breathed around us. Pipes groaned in the ceiling. Water dripped in steady rhythms. It felt alive, like the building was listening. We didn't speak much after that. Just sat against the rusted tank, sharing a protein bar in silence while Karl kept nervously eyeing the door, and Jana sketched symbols into the margins of her notebook with shaking fingers. Things she claimed she saw in her sleep. After an hour, Willow stood up and wound the flashlight again. "I want to check the rest of the room." I followed. There was a narrow corridor behind the water tank, half hidden by hanging plastic sheets. We moved carefully, careful not to step on loose bolts or scrape metal. The smell changed as we passed through. Less like mildew, more like something rotted behind walls. Something that had once been human, but had long since forgotten how. We passed stacked janitorial bins, old broken vacuum parts, empty paint cans. And then, a door. No sign. No label, just cold metal with a keypad mounted beside the handle, the kind you weren't supposed to notice. Willow reached for it, but before her fingers touched the keypad, it clicked. Unlocked. The door hissed open a crack, air sucking inward like the building was exhaling through it. I raised the crowbar. She pushed the door open. Inside was a stairwell spiraling down, farther than any school basement should have gone. Much farther. The air that came up from below wasn't just cold. It felt wrong, like stepping too close to a breaker box humming with power, like looking at static for too long and thinking you see a face in the noise. I took a step back. Willow didn't. She stared down into the dark, then whispered, "This isn't a part of the school." Kyle and Jenna came up behind us. "Where does it go?" Jenna asked. "I don't know," Willow said, "but I think it's why they're here." She turned back to me. "We need to go down." "No," I said. "We don't. We survived tonight. We wait until sunrise and we run. We never come back here." She looked at me, not scared, resolved. That's when we heard it again, from deep below. A knocking. 3 slow, deliberate knocks, just like the cabin door, just like before. We didn't go down, not that night. We sealed the door, jammed the latch with a piece of rebar, and retreated back into the boiler room with the others. I don't know what was beneath that stairwell. I don't know what made that knock, but I think it remembers us, and I think it's still waiting. I don't know how long we slept, if we slept at all. Every time my eyes closed, I saw the toddler again, his little hands, the sound her spine made. Willow sat across from me, arms tucked into her jacket, head leaned back against the boiler. Jenna hadn't moved in at least 20 minutes. Her pencil had stopped scratching those looping chaotic symbols in her notebook. And Kyle, he was standing near the door again. He hadn't stopped watching it since we came back. Then, we all froze. This time louder, harder, metal vibrating against its hinges. "Get back," Willow hissed. Another slam, like something ramming the door with its full weight. I grabbed the crowbar and backed towards the corner. Kyle reached for his hammer. Jenna was already whimpering, her notebook clutched to her chest like it might absorb whatever came through. Then, 3 knocks. Deliberate, measured, familiar, exactly like the cabin. The door handle didn't move. It didn't have to, because it was remembering. The room had no windows, no exits but the one behind the boiler, the one we swore we wouldn't open. Willow looked at me. "This place isn't safe anymore." I nodded. We didn't argue. There was no time. Kyle and Jenna grabbed their packs. Willow wound the flashlight again. I pulled the rebar from the sealed door and let it clatter to the floor. It hissed open a fraction. Just like before. Same air, same unnatural pull. We stepped through. The door shut behind us with a quiet, final click. The stairwell spiraled downward. We counted 7 flights, each one narrower than the last. Pipes ran along the walls, some still warm. The metal steps creaked with our weight. Halfway down, my flashlight caught something smeared across the wall in greasy black handprints. Dozens of them, as if someone had clawed upward, trying to escape. Jenna didn't say a word, not even when we passed what looked like a shredded lab coat caught in the stair railing. At the bottom was another door, wide, seamless, built into the concrete like a vault. No handle, just a flat panel beside it, black with a scanner the size of my palm. A single red light pulsed at its center. Willow leaned forward. "Fingerprint reader." "Or retino," Kyle added. "Either way, we're screwed," I muttered. We stood in silence, the kind that comes right before you realize there's no going back. Then, the red light blinked, and blinked again, like it was thinking. We stood there like statues, breath fogging the stale air. "It's biometric," Kyle said, breaking the silence. "We need a print or a..." "Carter," I said. The word left my mouth before I could stop it. Willow turned to me, eyes narrowing, but the scanner heard it. The red light froze, then turned green. A low tone buzzed from somewhere behind the wall. And then, Willow Roth, Natalie Ames, civilian authorization confirmed. My blood turned to ice. The voice wasn't mechanical. It was too clean, too smooth, like someone had recorded a whisper and filtered out everything human but the rhythm. Directive code accepted. Site 12 sub-access unlocked. There was a click, then another. The seam in the wall breathed open, not like a door, but like flesh parting along an old scar. The air that came out was cooler than before, drier. It didn't smell like mold or rot or dust. It smelled like sterile silence and old electricity. Willow stepped back. What the hell is this? Karl looked at us like we were speaking in riddles. How does it know your names? I don't know, I said. But I did. Or at least, I feared I did. We stared into the dark tunnel beyond the now open doorway. No lights, just black, total and deep. Jana was the first to move. Without a word, she clicked on her little flashlight, just a pen light, flickering weakly, and stepped inside. Willow followed. Karl came next. I hesitated at the threshold. Something in me recoiled from that doorway. Something deep, primal, like whatever was waiting beyond it wasn't built to be seen. But I went anyway, because that's what survivors do. They go where the silence opens for them. The tunnel gave way to light. Not flickering, not organic. Cold, fluorescent light. White, steady. The kind used in places where mistakes aren't allowed. We stepped into a clean room. Low ceiling, white panels, humming vents overhead. Everything smelled of bleach and static, and something sharp beneath it, like ozone clinging to a surgical table. There were no bodies, no blood, just observation. 2 desks, a bank of flat monitors darkened in standby. One was on, already logged in. A profile in the top corner read, Dr. Isaac Thorne, clearance level 3, status, off-site. Willow stepped forward and tapped the mouse. The screen flared awake. 4 files sat on the desktop, each with no icon, just names. Ames, Natalie. Roth, Willow. Project, Directive 131. Subject, 18C. Jenna leaned over the desk. Why are your names in here? I didn't speak. I clicked mine first. The document opened in a bare white window. No formatting, no title, just text. Civilian ID, N. Ames. Observation initiated following subject's secondary exposure to Site 17 field anomaly. Emotional stability flagged. PTSD indicator elevated. Character index, passive resilience. Primary risk, attachment-driven breakdown. Test escalation approved. Results pending. Note: exposure threshold nearing phase 2. Monitor closely for containment breach. I blinked hard. What does that mean? Kyle asked. I clicked Willow's file next. It was shorter. Civilian ID, W. Roth. Selected for tether link stability. Historical resilience in high-stress environments. Strong candidate for asset reclassification pending outcome of current exposure cycle. Results monitored under Directive 131. Willow's lips moved, but no sound came out. Tether link stability, she repeated finally. What the hell does that mean? I didn't answer. None of us did, because the word that lingered was the one they didn't explain. Test. We weren't victims, we were subjects, and someone had been watching all along. I clicked the file next. Project Directive 131. Test of character model successful. Civilian stress reactions within tolerances. Remaining anomalies within projected thresholds. Note: unforeseen search following subject 18C event has yielded secondary data of interest. Prepare Site 12 for closure following 48-hour observation window. Local assets instructed to isolate. No witnesses. Only results. Willow whispered, "They're going to kill us." Then I clicked the last file. Subject 18C status. Missing last confirmed interaction. Extraction site. Redacted incident resulted in cascading breach. Herald 000 confirmed active. Earth 1724. Interdimensional residue detected. Subject 18C no longer locatable via standard metrics. Reclassification. Lost. Division assets instructed to halt search. Monitor all tether anomalies for resurgence indicators. If 18C returns, prepare Directive Alpha. The file ended there. No signature, no timestamp, no explanation. Just one final line, added in smaller type, almost like a note scribbled by a different hand. If the Herald is remembering, it won't be alone for long. The screen flickered once, then went black. The screen stayed black. No reboot, no password prompt, just the quiet hum of electricity being rerouted somewhere else. We didn't speak for a long time. Then Willow said what all of us were thinking. If there was a Dr. Thorne, he didn't log out. She turned to the hallway branching off the clean room. A faded green exit sign above it flickered with just enough juice to show the corridor stretched further. No camera in the corner, just wires, and the smell of air that hadn't been disturbed in too long. "Let's see if anyone else is left," she said. I nodded, not because I wanted to, because I couldn't imagine staying here with those files. The hallway beyond the clean room was colder, older, concrete walls, no windows, just long windowless steel doors every 15 feet, each marked with a 5-digit serial number etched into the wall beside them. We opened the first one. Empty office, desk, filing cabinet, rolled up blueprints of our town pinned to a corkboard with dozens of red marks over it. Parks, schools, intersections. Willow ran her fingers across a pin stuck over our street. "This is weeks old," she said. "Maybe longer." Jenna picks up a clipboard from the desk. There was a single line on the last page. Behavioral deviation occurred sooner than modeled. Adjustments required. Containment maintained. We moved to the next room. Empty bunk room. 4 beds. 3 made, 1 not. A black duffel bag on the floor. Inside, division issue gear. Combat boots. A half-used medkit. A tattered manual labeled Subject Reclamation Level 2. Kyle flipped it open. Most of the pages had been removed. One remained. Scrawled across it in black marker. "Don't follow the light. It's not yours." He dropped the booklet and backed away. We kept going. Storage room. Another office. A room filled with monitors still powered on, each displaying static feeds of the town above us. Block by block. House by house. One showed our kitchen. The flashlight beam flickered across it. Jenna started to cry. The last door was different. It had no markings, no serial number, just a smeared fingerprint on the glass panel where a nameplate once sat. I opened it slowly. The room beyond was colder, smaller, a desk smashed in, blood smeared across the back wall like something had crawled down it. But the corner of the room held the most chilling thing I'd seen all night. A chair. Not bolted down, not damaged, just placed perfectly in the center of a glass ring etched into the floor. Above it, a single ceiling-mounted camera, broken. Beside it, a sink, stainless steel, still running, just a thin, steady drip. There were no bodies, no signs of a struggle, just the feeling that we had come in at the end of something that didn't finish cleanly. Kyle spoke for the first time in what felt like hours. "They're watching everything, running trials." He turned to me. "They picked you." I shook my head. "Not just us, our whole town." Will looked down at the chair, then up at the ceiling, then whispered, "This isn't the end." And she was right, because somewhere deep below this facility, beneath the cement, beneath the cold and the wire and the years of silence, something knocked. Just once. Soft. But we heard it. The knock didn't come again, but something in the air had changed. Heavier, pressurized, like the facility had inhaled and was waiting to exhale. We stared at each other in the dim light. No one moved. Then Willow tilted her head toward the ceiling. "Do you hear that?" We went still. Faint. Something shifting in the vents overhead. Slow, deliberate, not mechanical, like bone-crushing metal. Kyle grabbed the flashlight and pointed it upward. Whatever knocked, it's moving. I scanned the room again, trying to find another way out. Another clue. Anything. That's when Jana knelt by the back wall and pulled open a narrow grate near the floor. "A vent system," she said. "This building's old. HVAC runs along the foundation and doubles through the upper halls." Kyle squinted down the passage. "Too narrow for a person." "Too narrow for us," Willow added. "But not for it," I said. She stood up fast. "We're not staying here." I pointed back towards the surveillance room. "We don't have to. If the monitors are still getting feed, the system might be active. We can access a control terminal." "And do what?" Karl asked. "Find out where it's going." Back in the observation room, we powered on the console beneath the monitors. A single button clicked orange beside the keyboard. Live diagnostic. Access limited. Willow hit it. 3 things happened at once. Number 1, the monitors blinked on, one after another. Grainy green tinged security footage of the facility's internal corridors. Number 2, a small vent camera flickered to life. Camera 7B, top corner view of the ceiling shafts. Number 3, the overhead PA crackled. "Sublayer breach detected. Containment status compromised." Then silence. We leaned in to watch camera 7B. Something was in the duct. Not moving toward us. Not rushing. Just crawling. Slow. Long. It wasn't shaped right. I could only see glimpses. Limbs that folded the wrong way. A back that seemed to ripple. Eyes. Too many. Too still. It paused for a second, then lifted its head. It was smiling. Jana backed away from the screen. "That's not a person." "It was never supposed to be," Willow said. The monitors kept flipping through internal rooms. Then one caught my eye. A hallway. Dead center on the screen. A second access tunnel. Labeled level -3. One door half open. No movement. I pointed. "That's where the sound came from." Kyle leaned closer. "There's a junction ahead of it. Some kind of service access. Maybe a communications station?" Willow looked at me. "It's either follow the thing in the duct, or follow where it came from." The monitor flickered again. This time, a camera we hadn't touched blinked to life. Cam 00. No label, no location. Just a still image of the observation room we were standing in. The live feed. All of us visible, framed perfectly. Then, frame by frame, it began zooming in on me. The feed distorted. Words flashed in the lower corner. Subject present. Tether anchor stable. The cursor on the terminal moved by itself. Someone, something was watching, typing. "We're glad you made it this far. The others weren't strong enough." I slammed the monitor power. Everything went black. "We go to the tunnel," I said. "Now." We made our way down level -3. The air was colder. The lights overhead flickered, but never fully came on. Emergency strobes everywhere, every 20 feet, cast us in slow pulses of white and red. The tunnel at the end bent down sharply, and waiting there, a reinforced steel door. Not clean, not bright like the others. This one was cold, scarred. The word Com Station 03 stenciled in faded paint across it. No scanner, just a mechanical wheel. Kyle grabbed it, grunted and spun it open. It groaned, opened slowly. Inside, a communication center. Retro tech, dust-thick consoles, battery backups humming low. And against the far wall, a radio. Still active, still blinking. A tiny green light flickering beneath the dial. Kyle sat at the radio like it might burn him. His fingers hovered over the dials, unsure where to start. Willow leaned in, adjusted the frequency by instinct. Division runs encrypted channels. Try anything ending in .9. He nodded, tuned to 143.9, then 88.9. Static. Hiss. More static. Then, a click. A shift in tone. Someone was there. Willow grabbed the mic. "This is Willow Roth, ID unknown, civilian class. I'm here with Natalie Ames and 2 others. We're inside 12. There's something wrong down here." Static crackled.
"Roth? Ames?"
My stomach clenched. It was him. Carter. Calm. Measured. Exact. The man who watched us through glass and paper and wires.
"You shouldn't be transmitting from that station."
Willow's voice cracked. "What the hell is happening? Why are we in your files? Why does this place know us?" Carter didn't answer right away. Then,
"Containment failed in multiple sectors. The trial advanced. Field results exceeded projections."
"What trial?" I shouted into the mic. "We didn't sign up for this. We didn't even know."
"You didn't need to."
Silence. We waited. He continued.
"Extraction is not authorized. Division parameters prohibit intervention during active evaluation windows. You are not cleared for contact."
Willow's hand was trembling on the mic. "We're not assets," she said. "We're people."
"You were people."
That landed like a hammer. Then his tone shifted, just slightly.
"You want to survive? Get to the edge of town, before sunrise. If you're alive when the window closes, you'll be flagged as stable. We'll debrief you then."
Jenna whispered. That's it?" I stared at the radio, rage shimmering in my throat. "You're watching us die."
"We're observing."
Then a pause, and one last sentence.
"Whatever follows you now is not ours."
The line went dead. We sat there for a moment, not breathing, not blinking, just processing. Willow turned to me. "We can't stay underground." I nodded. Jenna clutched her notebook tighter. "We have to go back up." Kyle stood, his voice hoarse. "To the edge of town." We all knew what that meant. Miles of darkness, creatures waiting in the spaces between memory and muscle, things that wore our neighbor's skin, and maybe something worse. But we didn't have a choice. The only way out was forward. We left the radio room without another word. No one asked if Carter was telling the truth. No one asked what happens if we don't make it to the edge of town. Because we already knew. Whatever this trial was, it wasn't about survival. It was about watching us break. Back in the surveillance room, Willow moved fast. She pulled open the panel beneath the monitors, exposed the wiring, and found the right lead. Failsafe override, Sector D. Triggering this will trip every emergency siren inside 12, she said. Doors, locks, containment zones. If anything's still alive down here, it'll go for the noise. I finished. She nodded. She yanked the wire. The lights overhead turned red. An alarm screamed to life. We ran. The access hatch to the sewer system was rusted, but still intact. A side door near the lowest stairwell. Kyle cracked it open with the crowbar, and we dropped into the tunnel below. The air was worse down here, wet, coppery, like the pipes themselves had been bled. The passage sloped downward, narrowing the farther we went. Concrete walls lined with thin streams of water, grates overhead where slivers of the night above trickled through in milky shafts. We moved in a line. Willow first, then Jenna, then Kyle, then me. Our footsteps echoed back in weird, delayed stutters, like someone was walking behind us, just half a second too late. Jenna whispered something about the smell. Willow kept her eyes forward. And Kyle, he tried to talk, like if he didn't say something human, he might stop being one. I always wanted to go to Florida, he said, a voice too loud in the tight space. Like, visit my grandmother. She's got a little house near Kissimmee, orange trees. Said I could have the gas room whenever I wanted. No one answered. I figured I'd do it this summer, he went on. Save up, maybe take a bus down, Sit on the porch with her and drink lemonade out of those dumb jars she always keeps in the freezer? His voice cracked. Then, a wet pop. Not from his mouth, from inside him. He staggered forward. His breath hitched once, sharply. "Kyle?" Willow said. Then, something tore through his chest. A black and glistening tendril erupted from between his rib. Long, slick, segmented like an insect's leg, but pulsing like it was alive with breath and thought. It speared the air, then yanked sideways, dragging Kyle screaming into a side tunnel none of us had seen. His scream was choked, bubbling, then it vanished. Gone, just like that. Willow ran forward and grabbed the edge of the tunnel. "Don't!" I said, grabbing her arm. "It's not done feeding." We stood there frozen. The side tunnel gaped like a wound in the wall. Jenna was sobbing now, quietly, like a child who didn't want to be punished for crying. I turned off my flashlight. Whatever was down here had seen us, heard us, and now it knew we were less one. We didn't say another word for the next mile. We didn't speak after Kyle died. Didn't mourn. Didn't even scream. Because down here in the dark where the air vibrated with something else's breath, grief was a sound we couldn't afford. We moved faster. The water deepened to our ankles. The tunnel narrowed. Somewhere ahead, a rusted ladder extended to a maintenance hatch, the one Willow swore led to the edge of town. North side, closest to the forest line. She went first, then me. Jenna hesitated before climbing. Her hand brushed the wall, smearing blood. Kyle's or hers, I couldn't tell. She'd been silent since the tendril pulled them away, eyes locked on the ground like she was walking beside his shadow. I offered her a hand. She didn't take it. We emerged into fog. The town smelled worse now, like rot under a tarp, like meat left in plastic. Power lines sagged across the skyline like veins pulled too tight. Street signs hung sideways, and silence ruled. Willow scanned the street, then whispered, "We're close, just past the next hill." Jenna finally spoke. "I can't do this." Her voice was flat, hollow. Willow turned. "You don't have a choice." "I do," she said. "And I think I'm done running." Before either of us could answer, a giggle. Tiny, wet, wrong. It came from the bushes to our left. Then, the snap of small feet on wet pavement. We turned just in time to see the toddler. The same one. Same blood-matted curls. Same bare feet. Same face that looked like it had forgotten how to blink. Jenna froze. The thing moved fast. Too fast. It lunged at her with a shriek like a baby monitor turned inside out. Its tiny hands wrapped around her wrist and snapped it backwards with a sickening crunch. She screamed. Then it bit. Long gashes opened down her forearm, ragged and deep, blood spraying across the curb. The thing hung on her like a parasite, gnawing and clawing, its fingers moving like it was trying to dig in. Willow screamed and lunged. I was already running. I grabbed the hammer from Jenna's back where she dropped it. The toddler turned its head, mouth still latched to her arm, and looked at me, still grinning, like it knew, like it remembered. I brought the hammer down. Bone. Skull. It shrieked, twitching like a dying spider, but didn't let go. One more swing. The sound was wet and final. The thing crumpled, twitching, then lay still. Whatever it had once been, it wasn't anymore. Blood pooled beneath its twisted limbs. Jenna dropped to her knees, sobbing through clenched teeth. Her arm hung useless, bent at the wrong angle. Willow tore strips from her shirt and started wrapping the gashes, fast but careful. "We need to move," I said, scanning the tree line. "That was a noise we could get away with." Willow nodded, but Jenna just sat there cradling her ruined arm. "This isn't just survival," she whispered. "They're studying us." We didn't argue, because she was right. We moved through the woods slow. Jenna's weight slumped between us, her breath shallow, her face streaked with blood and sweat. Willow supported most of her, one arm wrapped around her back, whispering soft encouragements between gasps of air. Her broken arm dangled against her side, hastily splinted with duct tape and branches. She hadn't said a word since the toddler. Neither had I. The trees thinned ahead, just enough to show the slope beyond. The perimeter line, the edge of town. We were close. And that's when we saw the dog. It stepped out from between two rotted pines. Big, mangy, limbs longer than they should have been, eyes sunken deep and almost sucked into its skull. Its jaw hung open, slack and trembling with the rhythm of breathless panting, but no sound came out. Its skin twitched, not from fleas, from something underneath. It was infected. There was no doubt, and it was standing dead in our path. We froze. The wind blew. The dog twitched again. Then it sniffed the air and turned away, walked back into the trees. Willow didn't move until it was gone. I didn't breathe. Jenna whimpered, barely conscious now. And then, just past the next ridge, we saw the edge, a small clearing, a thin road, a rusted road sign half swallowed by vines that read, "Thank you for visiting Pine Hollow." We stepped across the line, and then the spotlights hit us. Bright, white, soundless. 3 figures emerged from the tree line, rifles lowered but ready. Division. You could smell it before they even said a word. Sterile, clean fabric and ozone and something metallic beneath it. Another stepped forward. Long coat, silver hair at the temples. Calm eyes that didn't blink much. Carter. He didn't look surprised, didn't even look impressed, just satisfied. Like a man watching lab rats finally reach the end of the maze. Willow's legs almost buckled. Jenna passed out. I kept my grip on the hammer. Carter motioned to the medics. They rushed forward, took Jenna gently from us, checked Willow's wrists, shined a pen light into my eyes. One of them started bandaging the gash on my shoulder I hadn't even realized was bleeding. Carter finally spoke. "Congratulations," he said, a voice smooth and quiet. "You made it." Willow looked up at him, hatred burning in her face. "You knew we were in there." "Of course," he said. "We were always watching." "And Kyle?" I asked. Carter turned to me slowly. "There's always loss," he said. "It's part of the metric." The lights buzzed. The medics finished. They handed us black envelopes, like before. Carter stepped forward, just enough that I could see the lines around his eyes. He smiled faintly. "You held up well, Natalie. Better than Pine Hollow. Better than Trial Group Red. Just like last time we met." I opened my mouth to ask when, but he was already turning away, walking back into the trees like this was just another day. Just another result. Willow watched him disappear. Then she turned to me. "What now?" I looked down at the envelope in my hand, then at the edge of the forest behind us. And for a long, cold second, I didn't have an answer. Because I knew one thing for sure. Whatever the division was testing us for, we passed. And I think that's the part that should scare us the most.